Well, it's an honour to be here. It's taken me a long time to get here. And to tell you about our training intervention for speech pathologists and occupational therapists, or SPOTs, that we held in 2015. So I'm going to refer to speech pathologists and occupational therapists as SPOTs. I hope that's okay. Okay. Sorry. All right. So why did we have the training? Well, an early introduction of an appropriate communication device can have a positive effect on quality of life and depression in people with MND. And in our context, the major barriers to the early introduction of communication devices are our large geographical area in New South Wales, the state of Australia, which makes it difficult to access specialist AAC services. These services are also limited and costly and have long wait lists. And we knew that there was a gap in knowledge and confidence, as in 2012 we conducted a survey with SPOTs, and amongst the results, 55% of speechies are not confident in completing an AAC assessment, and 72% of OTs reported minimal knowledge about the range of alternate access options for people living with MND. Survey respondents also identified the need for face-to-face training to further develop their confidence. Okay, I get confused here. All right. So that knowledge and capacity building initiative for everyday therapists was the one-day CompSpot workshop that we conducted in Sydney in 2015. Okay, the aim of the day was to enhance the knowledge, skills and confidence of everyday SPOTs so that people living with MND have evidence-based service delivery for communication difficulties and improve communication outcomes and quality of life. Oops. Oh, sorry. And the learning objectives was to hear from a range of speakers, including AT specialists and people living with MND, be introduced to the evidence for assessment and implementation for AAC for people with MND, to learn about a 6-stage approach for providing assessment and support, explore and in discipline-specific groups assessment and implementation models, and learn about everyday strategies and devices that commonly meet the needs of people living with MND. So here is an outline of the day that we felt would achieve the aims and learning objectives. And if you start at the top, we started with some role plays in discipline-specific groups where we showcased a 6-stage approach to assessment and support and demonstrated the person-centred approach within a palliative care framework. This set the scene for the rest of the day, which we unpacked in the following sessions. The second session covered the frameworks for best possible outcomes. We then had time for introductions. After morning tea, we had a powering up session, and that was a plenary session, where a practitioner from a specialist AAC centre gave an overview of the evidence around AAC. We then showed videos of people with MND using communication devices in the action session, and then we split into discipline-specific groups for the Aim Right session, which was the meaty content around OT and SP models of assessment and AAC practice. We then had lunch, and after lunch was the hands-on section of the day, which everyone was waiting for. We had 11 groups of 5 getting hands-on with communication equipment, 8 minutes in each group. Before afternoon tea, we got into multidisciplinary groups to brainstorm easing the pathways to overcome barriers to trial and supply, implementation, monitoring and review. And finally, we put all of this into action by working through case studies in multidisciplinary groups. It was a big day. So who attended the day? We had 60 SPOTs attending from across the state, and the training was fully subscribed 6 weeks out, and we had an equal number of OTs and speech pathologists. We asked them their caseload of people with MND, and we found that 45% of them had only limited experience with people with MND, less than 1 MND client for every 20. A further 34% said that they had between 2 to 5 MND patients for every 20, and this was the group that we were targeting, those who were not AAC specialists, but rather therapists providing speech pathology and OT services in their local area. So how would we know if the one-day training intervention was successful in increasing knowledge and confidence of everyday speech pathologists and OTs? We gave them a paper pre- and post-workshop confidence learning needs assessment, and we also asked them to complete an evaluation at the end of the day. And what did we find? We found that the self-identified confidence levels of OTs was very low, with 84% saying that they were not confident at all or were only a little confident in recommending and setting up alternate access options for people with M&D. And that 87% of OTs rated their knowledge about the range of alternate options as minimal or less. And this was very low, and we were quite surprised at how low this was. For speech pathologists, the picture was a little bit different, with 33% of them rating themselves as a little confident or not confident at all in completing an AAC assessment. And most fell into the somewhat confident category of 37%. We also asked speechies how confident they were in implementation of AAC technology, but we broke that down into three categories. The first category was how confident they were to implement no-tech options. So the no-tech options included communication breakdown strategies, repeating contextual cues, slowing speech, over-articulating. And 81% said that they were already quite or extremely confident to do this. The second category was how confident speech pathologists rated themselves to implement low-tech options such as alphabet boards, pen and paper, eye gaze boards, text or symbol-based communication books. And 63% of them rated themselves to be quite to extremely confident to implement low-tech options before the training. For implementing high-tech options such as text-based speech-generating devices such as LightWriter, iPad and speech-generating app, head and mouse system to access communication, 37% said that they were quite to extremely confident in implementing AAC, and 44% rated themselves as not confident at all or only a little confident to implement high-tech. So these pre-tests confirmed our earlier surveys where generally SPOTs had low knowledge and confidence in implementing AAC for people with M&D, particularly in the high-tech area. So after the training and as part of the evaluation, we asked participants to rate the usefulness of each session they attended. What this graph tells us is that they found the practical hands-on workstations and videos of people with M&D most useful, but they also rated the theory sessions very highly, including the presentation on evidence and strategies for AAC assessment and the overview of best practice. And here they are getting into action and participating, and they're the role players at the bottom right-hand corner. So the feedback from the day was very positive. Over 90% of participants rated the day as very good to excellent. But did the training increase their confidence and level of knowledge? So here are the results of the post-survey compared with the pre-survey, and we were thrilled with the results. The grey bars are the pre-training and the colour is the post-training. And before the training, over 80% of OTs rated themselves as not confident or only a little confident to assess, recommend and set up alternate access options for people with M&D. And after the training, no OT rated themselves as not confident. In fact, 71% of OTs rated themselves as somewhat confident or above to set up alternate access options for people with M&D after the training. And this was an astonishing increase in one day. And what about their knowledge? Prior to the training, almost 90% of OTs rated themselves as having no knowledge to minimal knowledge about the range of alternate access options. Post-training, 78% feel that they have adequate knowledge or above. And again, we were really delighted with the results. Due to the training day, OTs now said that they knew more about the range of alternate access options available to people living with M&D. Overall, how confident are speech pathologists in completing an augmentative and alternative communication assessment for clients with MND after the training day? At the conclusion of the training, no speechie rated themselves as not confident at all. Only 15% felt a little confident, and this is down from 25% from the beginning of the day, 26%. What this graph is telling us is that 85% of speech pathologists rated themselves as somewhat confident and above in completing an AAC assessment for someone with MND, and the majority of these have identified themselves as quite confident. We also asked them to rate their confidence after the training in implementing an AAC assessment for no-tech, low-tech and high-tech AAC, and the training did not have a significant effect on their confidence to implement no-tech AAC. With implementing low-tech options, speech pathologists did feel more confident after the training than before, with 86% feeling quite to extremely confident post-training, compared to 63% feeling that way before training. The most significant impact was the increase in confidence to implement high-tech AAC after the training. 89% of speech pathologists post-training felt somewhat confident or above in now implementing an AAC assessment, and almost half identified feeling quite confident to extremely confident. This is also an excellent result. No speech pathologist is not confident in implementing high-tech AAC technology at all at the conclusion of the day, and much fewer remain only a little confident. So in summary, in the pre-training survey, 16% of OTs rated themselves as somewhat confident and above to set up alternate access options for people with MND, and this moved to 71% by the end of the day. And in pre-training, 12% of OTs rated their knowledge about the range of alternate access options as adequate or above, and this moved to 78% by the end of the day. And we felt these results from a one-day training intervention were phenomenal, particularly for OTs. We saw less of a shift with speechies, but we're still pleased with the results. 66% of speech pathologists at the beginning of the day rated their confidence to complete an AAC assessment as somewhat confident and above, and this moved to 85% by the end of the day. And 56% rated themselves as somewhat confident and above to implement an assessment for high-tech AAC at the beginning of the day, and this moved to 89% by the end of the day. We also asked participants post-training whether they required further support to develop their knowledge and skills after the day, and of course they overwhelmingly did feel as though that required more support. So we asked them to be more specific and tell us in what practice areas would they like further support, and we did this pre and post-training. And we can generally see that the one-day training shifted people's self-identified future training needs and areas for further support, and this was interesting. Red is for the end of the day, and it was what they were wanting less of that was significantly different. They identified needing, from the bottom of the graph, less support for information gathering and assessment, less support for mounting and positioning, and less support needed to monitor and review. We also asked them to identify what training and support method they thought they might need to further develop their skills and knowledge in using assistive technology before and after the day. And at the end of the day, they needed less of, and this is from the bottom up, case discussions, clinical pathway guidelines, joint visits with a specialist AT consultant, and video conferencing. They did identify that they needed more, and this is from the top, online training videos, online self-paced training modules after the workshop. And this is interesting as these training and support methods are about giving spots the tools so that they could do it themselves. And finally, to conclude, after a one-day training intervention, Spots identified that they really can do it, and the next project is to find out whether they are putting this confidence and knowledge gained from the one-day training intervention into practice for people with MND to improve their quality of life through early local access to AAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristina. Okay, so now it's over to you again. Any questions out there? Don't see any hands anywhere. Yes, I've got one down here.
Hi, I was wondering, in the past when I've done these sort of training programs for groups of speech pathologists and some OTs, what I find is there's a huge increase in knowledge after these, but a lot of the SLPs reported that following this type of training, they didn't have the equipment they needed to do these assessments readily available. And I was wondering, perhaps it's different in your situation, how you are dealing with that.
So what we did was we only used equipment that we have in our FlexEquip loan pool. So we have a loan pool and a range of equipment for people with MND that's free of charge for people with MND across the state to access. So what we did was we only chose those items that we were able to access, and we've got a very extensive loan pool. We didn't have eye gaze, but we did showcase it because people wanted to know that, but we're looking at having that as part of our FlexEquip loan pool as well. Good question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I've got one at the front. Sarah?
Hi, are you going to be redoing the questionnaire then, did you say?
Yeah, I think that we've got to do a follow-up survey, so it's now a year and a half afterwards.
Okay,
so,
excellent. Yeah.
Yep. I'll let you know how that goes. Oops.
Any more? No? Okay, so thanks very much, Kristina, for your presentation. Thank you.